I have a tree stump in my backyard that's been sitting there for 2 years. The tree came down in a storm. The stump stayed. And if you've ever dealt with a stump, you know the options. Rent a grinder for $200, pay someone $400 to do it for you, or just live with it until it rots on its own, which takes somewhere between 3 and 10 years, depending on the species. Then I started seeing videos claiming there's a third option. $3 of copper sulfate crystals from the garden section. Drill some holes, pour it in, wait 60 days, stump is dead and ready to break apart by hand. No grinder, no chainsaw, no contractor. So I bought a bag. I've got the stump.
And we're going to find out whether this is 60 days to a clean yard or 60 days of nothing. First, what copper sulfate actually is and why anyone thinks it kills stumps. Copper sulfate is a naturally occurring compound. Copper, sulfur, oxygen.
It's been used in agriculture for over a century, primarily as a fungicide and algicide. You'll find it in the garden section, labeled as a root killer for drains, or as a fungal disease treatment for plants. The crystals are bright blue, which is how you know you've got the right thing. It costs about $3 for a small bag, more for larger quantities. The theory behind using it on stumps goes like this. A living tree stump doesn't just sit there. It's actively trying to survive. The root system is still pulling water from the soil. The cambium layer just under the bark is still generating new cells. Some stumps will sprout new growth within weeks of the tree coming down. The stump is not dead. It's a wounded tree that's trying to recover. Copper sulfate in sufficient concentration disrupts the biological processes that keep plant tissue alive. It interferes with enzyme function at the cellular level. Applied directly into the wood, the idea is that it penetrates through the vascular system, the same channels that used to carry water and nutrients up the tree, and kills the tissue it contacts. That's the theory. Whether it works in practice and how quickly is what we're actually testing. But there are a few important caveats that usually get left out of the viral version of this idea. First, movement inside a stump isn't the same as movement inside a living tree. In a standing tree, water is actively pulled upward through transpiration. Leaves evaporate water, and that creates a continuous flow from roots to canopy. Once the tree is cut down, that system collapses. There's no upward pull anymore. What you're left with is mostly passive absorption, which is slow and inconsistent. So when people say the chemical spreads through the whole root system, that's not guaranteed. It might move a little. It might stay localized near where you applied it. It depends on moisture, wood density, species, and how recently the tree was cut. Second, penetration is a real limitation. Copper sulfate isn't a gas, and it doesn't magically diffuse through solid wood. It dissolves in water. That means it only goes where water can go. If the stump is dry or already starting to harden, absorption drops off significantly. Drilling holes helps because you're creating direct entry points. But even then, you're treating channels, not the entire mass. Third, concentration matters more than most people think. At low concentrations, copper sulfate acts more like a mild inhibitor than a kill shot. It can stress the tissue, slow down regrowth, maybe even prevent sprouting in some cases, but that's not the same as fully killing a deep root system. To actually reach toxic levels throughout the stump, you'd need enough material, enough contact time, and enough distribution. That's where the $3 solution starts to run into reality. Here's the setup. The stump is roughly 14 inches in diameter. Hardwood. I believe it's oak, though I'm not completely certain. That detail matters more than it seems. Hardwood species, especially oak, are built to last. Dense grain, slower decay, and a much more persistent root system. Pine or spruce stumps will usually break down on their own within a few years, sometimes faster in wet conditions. Oak is different. It holds structure, it resists rot, and it keeps trying to come back. I've personally seen oak stumps push out fresh green shoots years after the tree was cut. Not months, years. So if this method works here, it's doing real work. If it fails here, that tells us something too. The method I'm following is the one that shows up over and over again across videos, forums, and product instructions. It's consistent enough that we can actually test it properly instead of guessing. Drill holes across the top of the stump, about 1 inch in diameter, roughly 10 inches deep. Spacing is important, 3 to 4 inches apart, covering the entire cut surface. The goal isn't just to punch a few holes, it's to create a grid of entry points so the solution has as many chances as possible to get inside the wood. Then come the angled holes around the sides. These are drilled downward toward the center of the stump, trying to intersect whatever internal pathways are still intact. In theory, this is what allows the solution to reach deeper into the structure, closer to where the root system branches out. In practice, we'll see how much that actually matters. Every hole gets filled with copper sulfate crystals, not sprinkled, not partially filled, packed to the top. Then water is added to dissolve the crystals and carry the solution downward into the wood. This is where the whole method depends on absorption. If the stump takes the solution in, there's a chance it works. And even during application, you can already see variation. Some holes drain almost immediately, pulling the solution down like a sponge. Others hold liquid at the top, barely absorbing anything. Same stump, same drill bit, same depth, completely different behavior. That inconsistency is part of what we're testing because it directly affects how evenly the treatment spreads. Once everything is filled, the stump gets covered with a tarp. Not to speed anything up artificially, but to control the environment. It keeps evaporation down, prevents rain from washing or diluting the solution too early, and gives the chemical time to sit where it was applied. Without that, you're introducing variables that have nothing to do with the method itself. Reapplication is set at every 2 weeks. That's the commonly recommended interval, so we're sticking to it. No overloading, no daily treatments, just a consistent schedule that matches what people are actually being told to do. The claims around this are pretty specific. 60 days to kill a stump. Some say 90. A few say 30, which for a hardwood this size doesn't line up with how wood or root systems actually behave. That's a bold claim, and bold claims are easy to test when you have a clock. So we're starting the clock today. No shortcuts, no hidden steps, no switching methods halfway through. Same stump, same treatment, consistent application, and we track what actually happens, not what's supposed to happen. Day 1. What I can tell you right now, before the test is complete, is what the chemistry suggests is realistic, and where the claims start to outrun the evidence. The mechanism is real. Copper sulfate does kill plant tissue. It's used commercially for exactly this reason. That part is not in question. The timeline is where I'd pump the brakes on the more aggressive claims. A 14-inch oak stump has an extensive root system that extends well beyond what's visible above ground. Getting enough copper sulfate into that system to kill it completely, not just the visible stump, but the roots, takes time and multiple applications. 60 days is possible. It is probably optimistic for a large hardwood. What copper sulfate does not do is make the wood disappear. A dead stump is still a stump. It will rot faster once it's dead. Without the living tissue actively resisting decay, fungal breakdown accelerates significantly. But you're still looking at months to years before it breaks down enough to remove easily. If you need the stump gone quickly, dead or alive, you still need a grinder. What this treatment is actually useful for is stopping the stump from sprouting, stopping the root system from continuing to grow and potentially damaging pipes or foundations, and accelerating the long-term decay process. Those are legitimate benefits. They're just not the same as stump gone in 60 days. One more thing. Copper sulfate is toxic to aquatic life and harmful to soil microbiology in high concentrations. Don't use this method near a pond, a stream, or any drainage that leads to water. Don't use it near a vegetable garden. Copper accumulates in soil and can affect plant growth in the treated area. Wear gloves when handling the crystals. They'll stain your skin and clothing. Keep it away from children and pets until it's fully dissolved into the wood. It's a garden chemical that's been used safely for a long time. It just needs to be used in the right context. I'll be back at 30 days with an update on what the stump looks like, whether there's any visible die-off, whether new growth has stopped, whether the wood is showing any change in texture or moisture. and at 60 days, we'll do the full verdict. If the stump is dead and breaking down on schedule, this is a legitimate fix and one of the more useful things I've tested on this channel. If it's not, if the oak is just sitting there looking unbothered, I'll tell you that too, and we'll talk about what actually works. That's the next video. Subscribe if you don't want to miss the result. Fix or fiction. See you at day 30.